say, Nixon trying to cover up a burglary. It's actually a lot more alarming than any other impeachment we've had in American history.
Yeah, and probably based off something with such broader implications there. I think that's something they could also do as well. All right, we're going to change gears to opposition to endless wars. And I think Trump has had a very conflicting view on this. I don't think he's at heart an interventionist because or a isolationist when it comes to that. Personally, I support getting troops out of the Middle East in general. I think obviously we got to do it in a sensible way that won't completely destabilize the region. We got to put at least some kind of American presence in there, even if it's not troops, even if it's not people with guns. I think it shouldn't be people with guns because obviously we saw what happened when Trump did that with the Kurds with no warning. I think the way he did that was probably more of a problem than the action in and of itself. But there was definitely an interesting new article today in the New York Times about the Trump's opposition to, quote, endless wars, unquote, appeals to people who fought them. And that's a very interesting point because you assume the veterans would probably be the most gung-ho about supporting of these wars and kind of raising the flag and all that stuff. But not really. This is by Jennifer Steinhauer. Tyler Wade was awarded the Purple Heart while serving in Afghanistan and says he's proud of everything he did during his service. He also believes the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan were a mistake, as do a growing number of veterans, from retired generals to those who served across the enlisted ranks, from supporters of President Trump to resistance Democrats. All in all, it's a lot of wasted lives and money and time and effort spent to accomplish a goal we never accomplished. Nearly 2 decades after the attack of September 11th, polls show that a majority of all veterans have grown disenchanted with the continuing wars, even if the national security elite and both parties continue to press for an American military presence in Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan. The view is in stark contrast to widespread support for wars across the military and veteran community and the general population when George W. Bush first sent American troops to Afghanistan and then Iraq. The shifting attitudes of so many who served in wars help explain why Trump has support among veterans as he brings troops home and has resisted military action against other nations. There's been a slow but steadily increasing alliance on those on the left and the right on Capitol Hill to curb what Trump calls endless wars. And I think what I really don't like here about this article in general is the way that he frames that Trump is leading the way when it comes to getting our troops out. I mean, I think you could look to the left, because I feel like the left isn't getting enough credit for taking this charge here. Like, they have been probably the first, and pretty much what I'm trying to say, the left really cannot let the right upstage them on this, because we have people like Bernie Sanders work with people like Mike Lee to try and stop the war in Yemen, which Trump vetoed. So, it's so ridiculous to me that this New York Times article gives Trump the credit and kind of portrays him as the leader in stopping wars and really wanting to end intervention when it's helping Saudi Arabia, when it's helping Israel, when it's helping American quote-unquote allies in the region. He is the first to pony up more and more troops. But when it comes to just really, and by the way, when he pulled out the troops out of Syria and Afghanistan, I supported that decision. But I think, in my opinion, you got to do it better with the Kurds. But it's just something that is a real kind of annoyance to me that he can be interventionist and anti-interventionist depending on what day of the week or what time and what location it is and how much money and what business relationships that the Trump family has with said country. That just really kind of annoys me. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. A lot of people have said that Trump is motivated, his foreign policy is motivated more on a transactional basis than on one having to do with a long-term philosophy. And I think that Democrats want to pull out of these really long wars on basically more of a philosophical argument that we just can't be there forever and there's a time when we have to leave. Whereas I think Trump is, wanting to pull out of certain countries because he's been influenced by people like Vladimir Putin who don't want American troops there. And of course, as you mentioned with Saudi Arabia, Trump is a big friend of Saudi Arabia for dubious reasons. And so that's why he sent troops into Saudi Arabia after their oil fields were bombed.
Yep.
So it's very complicated. It's very messy. Sometimes the actions of the president align with those of Democrats, and sometimes they don't. But it's not for the same underlying reasons.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I feel like it is, again, a kind of a left-right issue, because I remember watching the second Democratic debate, and the discussion of bringing troops out of Afghanistan came up, and you got people like Elizabeth Warren saying that, and Bernie Sanders saying that, I want to get these troops out of here. It's something that we just got to do. And people like Michael Bennet and much more right-wing Democrats saying that, no, we got to keep them in. And I think that's something that probably one of the biggest mistakes Obama made is keeping this war going on and keeping our involvement in Afghanistan and stepping up the drone war, that kind of stuff. Again, as you say, for much more for philosophical reasons. I think a lot of the left and really the country has a problem with, like, that kind of stuff. Something I think the Democrats can't, and if they have the right nominee, won't do in the upcoming election. All right, we're going to now move on to a little bit of a change of topic. I don't know if you saw this, Glenn, but the interesting New York Times story that I just could not resist about Trump and Twitter, about the really what's been 11,000 tweets over 33 months. Wow. Yeah, so if the ban were... so it started off all with, it all begins today. I will see you at 11 a.m. for the swearing in. The movement continues. The work begins. This is his first tweet, 4:31 a.m., January 20th, 2017. And for his first tweet on January 20th, if the ban were announced with a 1 week notice, the bad would rush into our country during that week. A lot of bad dudes out there. This is during the travel ban. Remember this one? James Comey better hope that there are no tapes of our conversations before he starts leaking to the press. That tweeted his 1,000th tweet in office in July of 2017. At the beginning of his presidency, Trump tweeted about 9 times per day. Tremendous backlash against the NFL for its players for disrespect of our country. Hashtag stand for our anthem. That was in October of 2017. And of course, the obligatory thank you at Fox and Friends. A really great job and show. Happening around January of 2017. This probably happened more than just then. And of course, in the beginning of 2018, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un just stated that the nuclear button is on his desk at all times. Will someone from his depleted and food-starved regime inform him that I too have a nuclear button, but it is much bigger and more powerful than his, and my button works? Of course, Democrats want to abolish ICE. Remember the caravan. The past 3 months, Trump's tweets have spilled out at triple the rate he set in 2017. So it's 18 tweets per day, and it is pretty crazy. What is your how do you think the tweets really kind of affected Trump's presidency? Because there's definitely some interesting stuff in here.
Well, I think they help solidify his base. Anything, people who identify with him, his sort of, character. It feels to them like one of them is their president. He's not some elitist. He speaks in simpler, cruder terms. Just like me and my neighbors do. It's that kind of feeling. Mm-hmm. And that bonds him with his base. And I think that more than anything is the importance of his Twitter account. And of course, to the rest of us, we're just horrified by it. I mean, he acts like a petulant child, someone who is clearly not very intelligent, someone who is constantly striking out at people lower than him. I mean, he's the president after all. And so it's really just separated and divided the country more than anything. The people who are just sickened by his Twitter account, and others who are absolutely in love with it. It's really quite extraordinary.
Yeah, you just made me think of that very stable genius tweet. This feels like ages ago, but I do remember that happening. Wow. Yeah, so I mean, after Turkey invaded northern Syria just this past month, he crafted a response not only in White House meetings, but also in a series of contradictory tweets. This summer, he announced increased tariffs on $300 billion worth of Chinese goods using a tweet to deepen tensions between the two countries. And in March, Trump cast aside more than 50 years of American policy, tweeting his recognition of Israel's sovereignty in Golan Heights. He openly delighted in the reaction that he provoked. Boom, I press it, Trump recalled months later at a White House conference attended by conservative and social media personalities. And within 2 seconds, we have breaking news. Earlier on, top Trump aides wanted to restrain the president's Twitter habit, even considering asking the company to impose a 15-minute delay on Trump's messages. But 11,390 presidential tweets later, many administration officials and lawmakers embraced his Twitter obsession, flocking to his social media chief with suggestions. Policy meetings are hijacked when Trump gets an idea for a tweet, drawing in a cabinet member and others for wordsmithing. And as a president often at war with his own bureaucracy, he deploys Twitter to break through logjams, overrule, or humiliate recalcitrant advisors and preempt his staff, saying, quote, he needs to tweet, or this is Kellyanne Conway, he needs to tweet like we need to eat. So, yeah, that is definitely an interesting reality. The second week of October was his busiest, just this past, was his busiest week ever. 270 tweets in the second week of October. Wow. He attacked someone or something in more than half of his tweets. And most of those attacks occur in the early morning or later in the evening when Trump isn't likely to be around his advisors. Mostly from 6 to 10 a.m. and higher at 10 p.m. and onwards. The Times examined Trump's use of Twitter since taking office, and very, very interesting. So 2,405 tweets attacked Democrats, 851 attacked minority groups, 570 attacked immigrants, 758 praised or promoted Fox News and other conservative media, 256 attacked Hillary Clinton. Again, this is when he was in office. 233 attacked allied nations, and 16 referred to himself as everyone's favorite president. So, yeah, it's definitely I'm not going to go through it all, but it's definitely a very interesting little spread put out by the New York Times. Some funny stuff in it about, and also kind of disturbing stuff. But mostly I find this stuff kind of funny. I mean, I think it's like, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of like, I laugh, but I feel like I should be doing more about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think the New York Times did a whole spread of articles about his Twitter. There was another one in their series about how people who tweet at him influence him. And that one was really kind of scary. I don't know if you read that one, but... Was that
about in reference to some of the conspiracy theorist people?
Yeah, like imposters, spies, and conspiracy theorists who, tweet at him and actually influence what he believes.
Do you remember some of those examples of some of the ones that he was influenced by there, or no?
I can't really. Well, I mean, I think for example, a lot of what he believes about the Ukraine conspiracy theory about how they meddled in the 2016 election instead of Russia. I think a lot of that comes from, people like Putin and Manafort, but I imagine that a lot of it is what keeps feeding his belief in that thing is people on his Twitter feed. So, For a long time, I thought that President Trump was using these conspiracies, not that he believed these conspiracy theories himself, but that he used